Thank you, Sherry. And you're right. It is all about the cells. And so for a year now, we've been talking about cellular health and how these amazing little redox signaling molecules play a big part of that health and in different parts of our body, and which is exciting to continue to learn more and more about. So tonight's talk is going to be on our lung health. And so, the lungs are um, kind of important, okay, as you know. And, going a little bit off of what Sherry said, I had a really bad car accident years ago and was completely permanently disabled. And I found my way back as well. And it took a while. And, at the deepest, darkest part of my deepest valley of emotions and am I ever going to walk again or why am I not going to walk again and all of those types of struggling thoughts, I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was this. Okay, your body's broken, you got a lot of damage. That's a reality. But the truth is your body's always making new cells. And so if you stop complaining about the broken cells and focus on the next version of your cells, you're going to find your way out and you're going to heal. And that was such the motivation that it took to get me to realize that it's not over, nothing's over, and the next version of myself is going to be better than this version. And I mustered up enough oomph and energy and stamina to withstand whatever it took to do whatever it takes to make sure that the next version of these cells are a little bit better than the last version. And it took a few months, years to finally make that a reality. But it is a reality, and it can be a reality for everybody when you realize that you're not trapped to a condition or a label or something that somebody said you have. It's just part of a season that you're going through and an expression of life that you're living. We have the ability to impact every cell of our being and change the messaging, change the communication, and change the way that our body's repairing, remodeling, and creating the next version of yourself. So today we're going to talk a little bit about lungs. Let me go ahead and share the screen. So you knew that if I was going to talk about lung health, you're probably going to see some gross picture of a lung at some point in the presentation. I figured I'd just make that right out of the gate. And so here we have a healthy lung on the left side, obviously, and somebody that, had some issues going on with their lungs for quite some time on the right. So the first thing you ever do in this life was take a breath. The last thing you're ever going to do in this lifetime is take a breath. In fact, you breathe in about 88 pounds of oxygen a day and process it. Okay. Kind of important, seeing as every cell in your body needs this thing called oxygen. So we consume a lot of it. We can only live for 3 minutes without it. And so, again, kind of important. We can live for 3 days without water, 30 days without food, 3 minutes without air. So air and oxygen are super, super important. So in the span of your day, your week, your month, your life, how hard do you want to make that process on your lungs? And so I'm just going to start off by saying this. If you're not breathing clean air, your lungs are going to become the filter. Now, granted, we're going to breathe chemicals in, we do. But a lot of times people are putting themselves in an enclosed environment with lots of pollutants or chemicals in the air, and that's going to run a toll on your life. Okay, so we have to be considerate about filtering the things in our air so our lungs don't become the filter. Okay, so when we look at, oh, sorry. So when we look at the ICU, in patients that are in ICU, they're literally measuring one of the redox signaling molecules to determine how bad is the patient? Like how much inflammation or oxidative stress is there in the airway? So they use this to determine how seriously ill is the person. Ironically, that's kind of more important than measuring oxygen at this point. You can measure the free radicals or measure the redox signaling molecules. Nitric oxide is one of them to determine this type of problems. And they're going to use this information to basically treat the diseases and the condition. So in the lungs, nitric oxide is produced by the endothelial cells that play a regular part in blood flow and the airway tone. Okay. In the ICU, that measurement of nitric oxide levels, they're exhaled in the breath. So they're going to capture it from just capturing their breathing. Or they can actually look into the blood and get information about the extent of the injury and the inflammation and help guide treatment decisions. So for example, if a patient comes in with respiratory distress, okay, and they can't breathe, okay, so they're going to use this to assess the airway and the condition and decide if they need to use mechanical ventilation, okay. So if they measure high levels of nitric oxide, that means it's bad. Okay, there's a lot of inflammation. The lung function is greatly reduced. If they remeasure and they see the measure of nitric oxide is coming down, that means whatever treatment that they're doing is working and inflammation is being reduced. So in the blood, they can also check nitric oxide to see how well the heart is working instead of the lungs. Okay, and so the role it plays with blood pressure lies within the lining of your vascular system. And so as that's called your glycocalyx. And as the glycocalyx wiggles, it releases nitric oxide. So nitric oxide can cause vasodilation, so it can help with movement of the blood as well as help regulate blood pressure. So again, if it's too high of levels, we can assess how much damage or how much injury is present. So it's basically just a simple amount of balance. So our blood is carrying carbon dioxide from our tissue. Once it goes through cellular metabolism and it takes your energy and your oxygen and your glucose and makes energy, the end result is carbon dioxide. So from the tissue, we're going to dump carbon dioxide back into the blood right after it delivers all the oxygen into the tissue. So the tissue needs to have that exchange. And then when the red blood cells get back up into the lungs, it's going to let that carbon dioxide out and it's going to grab some fresh oxygen and transfer that back in. So that's the vital exchange of the two gases that have to happen in order to maintain life. In every single cell of your body, it needs that oxygen. So the health of the lung is really determined by the airway, okay? And so if the airway is having an issue, then we're gonna have issues with the lungs, okay? So the airway plays a huge role in that. So at the end of our airway, we have what's called alveoli. Okay, these look like grapes that you're seeing here in the screen. And these are little sacs that we have that the air and the gases are exchanged with inside of our lungs. And ironically, you knew we were going to talk about it, but during normal metabolism of these cells, redox signaling molecules are generated as a byproduct in cellular respiration. So that's reactive oxidative species and reactive nitrogen species. Okay, and so that's the positive and the negative components that are both redox signaling molecules that are used to neutralize things and keep balance within the chemistry of the alveoli. And so that balance regulates physiological functions and processes like inflammation in the body or in the lungs. Your immune response is all dictated by that, as well as cell growth and repair. So, however, it can get out of control. So if the production of either of these two is uncontrolled and becomes favored, like there's more of one than the other, this is going to cause damage to that delicate tissue inside the lungs. And that's going to lead to oxidative stress and or inflammation. So on the other hand, when you have a perfect balance of both of those redox molecules, then our lungs will actually function perfectly. And so again, we've talked about different ways that we use these redox signaling molecules to stay alive. Okay, this is absolutely one of those critical ones. We need these in great abundance in our lungs just so we can make that process of having oxygen available and get it into our body. Then we got to worry about being able to get it actually to the tissues of the cells, but that's a a further on process. But just getting it into the lungs itself, we have to have a balanced amount of both of these redox signaling molecules on hand, otherwise things go away. Now, antioxidants like glutathione, okay, and catalase and superoxide dismutase, these help regulate the levels of redox signaling molecules within the alveoli to protect against damage. Okay, and so those antioxidants, we've mentioned this. How an antioxidant works is it sits there and it sees a toxin or a free radical, something that's not supposed to be there. It's going to be in there causing harm to that delicate tissue in the lung. So then it looks around and says, hey, where's my redox signaling molecules? Oh, there's one. And it literally grabs that in one hand, the toxin in the other, and then it basically slaps them together. And when it does, the redox signaling molecules, it's going to be able to give or take an electron. It does whatever needs to be done to neutralize the threat. That's how antioxidants work. They're just the ones that grab the two to neutralize each other. So an antioxidant by itself will never work if it doesn't have the tools to do the job. The tool is the redox molecules that it needs to neutralize our toxin. If otherwise, you're going to have what's called oxidative stress or inflammation happen. So we've talked about this as well. There's two types of stress in the body. It's either oxidative stress, like you're rusting, or inflammation stress, like you're reacting to things. Okay, and so it's not like one's bad and one's good. Here's the thing, they're both bad. They're just both the two different types of stress that we have. If it's oxidative stress, meaning like it's rusting, that means we have too much of the signaling molecules that are positive, like too many positive molecules only. And so there's nothing to neutralize them, or not enough to neutralize them. So the scale tips towards oxidative stress. There's very low potential here, okay? And it's just causing damage to tissues and all sorts of problems with degeneration. Think of, things rusting outside, right? They're degenerating, they're rusting, they're oxidizing. Well, our cells are doing the same thing. And unless we have a balance of positive and negatives, and it favors the positives, that's oxidative stress. The other side of it is inflammation, okay? It's another type of stress when we have too many of the negative ions, okay? Too many of the reactive nitrogen species that we're using to the other end of the spectrum. Now, here's the thing. Both of them have low potential, which means it takes the charge away from our cells and they don't work well anymore. And if the charge isn't on the cell and we don't have the energy in the cell, we're not producing more of these. We need to produce energy and signaling molecules. That's the job of our mitochondria. And so we need to have them in balance. If they get balanced one way, our body rusts. If they get balanced out of balance the other way, our body shifts into this inflammation mode. And so let's talk about inflammation in the lungs, for instance. So this is when we have too many of the negative ions that are playing a part, okay? And so we need those to defend ourselves against the pathogens and the things that are entering the lungs. We need to see them right away and be able to be on the spot, calling in for all the the mechanisms of action that need to deal with that. It's the redox signaling molecules that are first on the site. And if I don't have the other component, the positive and the negative to neutralize it, things are going to get out of hand. When this happens, it's overproduced on the one side. This causes all sorts of pathological problems, such as chronic inflammation, cardiovascular disease, angry cell disorders, kind of use our wording properly there, and neurodegenerative disorders. And so these can't balance if there's chronic inflammation in the area. You can't neutralize the inflammation without the other ions. So it's the exchange of electrons and ions that we need. So excessive of these will damage the cellular structures and the biomolecules, such as the lipids and the proteins in your DNA. It leads to cell death, tissue damage, and of course, inflammation. So let's talk about inflammation in your airways when things get congested. So this is the example talking about asthma patients. So asthma is a very common condition that many people suffer from. And it's basically when you can breathe in, but you have a hard time breathing out. And so when we have wheezing happen because of that. So as we can see in the diagram, the inflammation happens when oxidative stress develops, causing a narrowing or a swelling and mucus production inside the airway. Remember, the health of the lung is determined by the health of the airway. If we can't get the air through the airway, we can't get the lungs to process and do what it's trying to do. And so what happens is when you have oxidative stress or inflammation, it's going to create the airway to swell. And this means that you have low levels of glutathione and superoxide dismutase. These are the two antioxidants that your cells are making for themselves to deal with this stress. And if you're not making it, it's because you don't have enough redox signaling molecules. Okay, and so you don't have the whole picture happening. And so if you have low potential, I can't make the glutathione, I can't make my superoxide dismutase, I'm stuck with this horrible condition where I chronically have this inflammation and my swelling in my lungs. And so creating high oxidative stress. Again, we can see that the airway gets trapped back in the alveoli, and then the airway closes even more, and you just can't get the air back out. Okay, so that's a horrible condition. So what happens when an allergy is present? Okay, so we're exposed to all sorts of things all the time, just walking outside. Our body responds to foreign substances. This is what an allergy is. And it has to make a decision right away. Is this a threat? Is it serious or not? Okay, and then it's going to decide what does it have to do. The problem is confusion. And the result is a breakdown of communication. So if our cells are not communicating properly, I might not recognize that it's a threat. I might not recognize that it's not so bad. And I might have the wrong reaction, okay? Our immune response, again, first line of defense, anything enters that lung tissue, the entire surface of the lung tissue has signaling molecules all over it. And when anything touches it, immediately it says, okay, what are you? Okay, what am I gonna do? It's the first messenger on the spot, and it's a signaling molecule. And it's going to call on for the immune system. It's going to call on for repair work. It's going to call on for more supplies and material. It's regulating that delicate balance of the potential in the redox, in the lungs, in those alveoli, based on that first contact. So when the communication breaks down and I don't have enough of it there to deal with that, oh my goodness, well, things happen. We're either going to overreact and cause anaphylaxis. This is when too many of those negative ions are in there, everything swells up, or we're going to have an underreaction where we have all the positive ions and now we're letting bad cells and bad things get into our body, foreign things that normally we would defend against, but we don't recognize them as a threat. So we let them just come in the front door and have a field day. So why is it that somebody has good potential one day and another day has terrible potential? Well, it all goes back to cellular communication. We've been saying this every week in different parts of the body, but hopefully today you're going to have a little aha moment and learn something a little bit different about signaling molecules. So first of all, for the ability for a cell to be able to communicate, it depends on the amount of redox chemistry that it has present in it to get the job done. So I'm not sure if you're aware how a battery is made, but a battery basically has a membrane inside and it separates all the positive ions on one side, or electrons, and negative electrons on the other side. And so when you touch either pole to to a light or to a flashlight or whatever, just one pole at a time, nothing happens. There's no potential if it's all negative or if it's all positive. It's just nothing happens. They're just sitting in there doing nothing. They're looking pretty. They're just electrons spinning inside this canister. Once I connect both poles with a conductor that allows them to both communicate and talk together, now all of a sudden we have potential, and it'll tell me the voltage and how much power I have in my battery. And so the battery by itself, depending on how many signaling molecules are inside of it, determines how strong the battery is, how long the battery lasts, and the voltage of the charge. Okay. So healing is simply a matter of recharging our cells. How do we do that? Well, we do that with ATP. And guess what? ATP is the currency that we have for life. Okay. It's our energy in the body. And so when we look at the health of our cells, this Dr. Otto Warburg, he had proven that a healthy cell actually has a charge on it of measurable charge of 70 to 100 millivolts. So that's the size of the battery. Okay, that's how much voltage comes out of a battery or out of our cells. And for size wise, our cells are amazingly powerful batteries compared to the size that it is, how much voltage it's producing. Now, a heart cell, ironically, has the highest voltage out of any other cells in your body. It's going to be between 90 and 100 millivolts. Kind of important because the heart never rests, never stops. It has to go, go, go all the time. We need the most potential out of any cell in our body to be in the heart. And so that makes good sense. Well, what he also found out that a chronic illness or chronic fatigue unilaterally across the board diminishes your voltage by 30 to 50 millivolts. So that means if you have a chronic illness, 70 to 100 is normal, you're 50 to 70. Worse yet, if you have cancer, cancer patients average between 15 and 20 millivolts. No potential. The guard left the station. They're just letting anybody in to do whatever they want and cause all sorts of havoc in the body. So think of your cells like little mini rechargeable batteries. And when we have a full charge, we shine bright, just like a flashlight. Now that's because inside that battery, we have a full amount of redox signaling molecules. We got electrons that are positive and negative on both sides. Now, as we age and go through life, we know that we lose our potential and never fully get as bright as we once used to be. Okay, and so that kind of happens with age. And if you can imagine the picture of the battery, it's going down in how much charge is left, how many of those electrons are still in there. And once there's no more left spinning inside, the light goes out and the battery is no longer useful anymore. There's nothing left. There's no potential left, even when you're touching both sides, because you used them all up. It's energy. You're using it inside that battery. And so when we think of ATP, it's inside our cell, right? We make ATP from the mitochondria. We talked about the mitochondria, and we could do a whole lecture just on mitochondria health. It has a different DNA than your whole body, than every other cell in your body. It's got its own DNA. In fact, the way that it makes ATP is because it makes redox signaling molecules at the same time to carry the sugar, the proteins, and the nutrients down the electron train transfer. And those signaling molecules taking them down there is creating a supercharged molecule called ATP. And that's the raw energy that we need to live and to have every cell activate and actually have potential. We need ATP. And I said that you make your body's worth. The weight of your body is how much of that you produce every day. But here's something you might not have known. You only have 50 grams in your body. That's it. You recycle it and you recharge it again 1,000 to 1,500 times a day. And so that's awesome. How are we charging it? How do we recycle it? Guess what? Redox signaling molecules. So it's the whole circle of life. You're taking energy, sugar, oxygen, nutrients, breaking it into molecules inside the mitochondria, converting it to electrical charges and energy. And we do that with signaling molecules. That's how we're produced. And then that energy sustains life. So even though it's 50 grams, we have to constantly recharge it. So all of your cells are basically like little tiny batteries. And to charge that battery requires a lot of processes to work. And guess what? The processes are all run and governed and directed through signaling molecules, okay? They are the magic that makes it work, okay? And so we have the ability to take oxygen and turn it into ATP. So when our lungs are working and we're actually getting oxygen and need to make energy out of it, we go into the Krebs cycle inside our mitochondria. And for one molecule of oxygen and glucose, we're going to get, I'm sorry, that says 28. It should be 38. 38 molecules of ATP for one molecule of glucose. Now, if we don't have glucose from oxygen, and we have to get the glucose from our muscles because we ran out of oxygen, now the process is really lame. It's such not a fair exchange anymore. We only get 2 ATP out of that. And then the net result is lactic acid, which is harmful to our body. It's like paste in our muscles, and it makes your muscles cramp and stay tight. So you think of these athletes that run, and the super athletes, they use up all their oxygen and they have to convert to anaerobic respiration. And that's how they get all this lactic acid in their muscles afterwards, because they used up their oxygen. So it's important that we keep our potential high so our lungs work, so we can get our oxygen and we can convert that to energy. Okay, that's inevitably what we're trying to do. And that process, from the beginning of breathing in that breath into the surface of the lungs to the alveoli, using our redox signaling molecules to keep the balance right so it doesn't get too inflamed or too stressed out, just right to be able to carry that oxygen and transport it into the blood, and then our blood to be able to take it to every tissue in your body. And the surface of your vascular system, guess what? Redox signaling molecules again, to take it back out of the blood and that oxygen and deliver it right for the actual tissue. And then say, oh, wait, don't leave yet. Before you leave, take the garbage out. I got some carbon dioxide here for you to put back into your red blood cell. Take that out of here. And so that whole process, every aspect of it, it's signaling molecules that are intertwined through the entire process in order to actually make that happen. And so, right. Where else was I going to go with that? I think that's it. So oxygen present, we make 38 ATP to 1 glucose. So I got it correct there. Without it, the exchange is terrible. It's like having a car that when you put premium gas in it, you get 38 miles to the gallon. And if you put regular gas in it, you get 2 miles to the gallon. It's like, that's not a very good carburetor. But that's the system that we have. and your body just needs to survive. So if you're going to starve yourself or not get oxygen or not treat your lungs well and pollute them, and your body's constantly having to shift into anabolic respiration, your cells have a very low potential. They're going to have a low charge, which guess what? It lets illness come in, weakness come in. A weak cell charge, if I have 1 bar, how effective is my phone? If I have 5 bars, oh my gosh, we can talk for a while, right? Same thing for the cells. It's not so much its signal as it is the signal, but it's the potential and the electric charge in the cell that we have to make sure we can charge back up. And so by taking care of the health of our cells, we realize that, you know what? It's just literally a game, an energy game at the cellular level. Okay. Health is literally an energy game at the cellular level and nothing more than that. When you have energy, you're healthy. There's truly no exceptions to this rule, period. If you have energy, you're healthy. If you're not, you get sick. Okay. Your cells need energy to survive. And they get that energy because they're producing it through molecules from your food, breaking it down into molecules, meeting with oxygen and sugar, ending up in these mitochondria right here, processing all the way down to make energy for you. That's what your body's doing. It's making energy to repair and heal different cells in your body. Every cell in your body has this thing. Your brain cells have like 2 million mitochondria per cell. Your heart cell, 5 to 8,000 per cell because you need them that much. Every other cell in your body, roughly 200. Okay. And so it's not, it's always a matter of how much oxidative stress goes on in that area. We need more mitochondria there to be able to combat that, to produce more signaling molecules to combat the inflammation and the stress. Well, your brain is the most important out of anything. You burn 30%, or you have 20% of your blood in your brain at all times, but yet it's only 2% of your body weight. So that says something about how much oxidative stress is happening, how much oxygen you're burning in your brain just to process your central nervous system. Very, very important. So what do we do with all this information? Well, we know that nowadays we have these things called redox signaling molecules that we can supplement with. And when we supplement with them, it's going to bring our potential back up. And so these molecules are what drive the function of every single cell in our body. It's what makes the mitochondria make energy in the first place. And they're producing more of these. We've talked about how you're producing them and using them up within a trillionth of a second. It's because you're producing them to make the energy. And as soon as the energy is made, it's used up. You have to produce more to make more energy. And doing it, you're charging up the energy and using it up. It's just a transfer of electrons and energy is what it's all boiled down to. So every decade we're alive, we lose the ability to make 10% of these molecules. So yeah, our cells are thirsty for it. They wish they had as much. That's why we don't heal as fast. We don't recover and bounce back as fast. And we age faster when we don't have it. So the ones, I already said that. So when we supplement ourselves, our nervous system knows exactly where to take these molecules and what cells need it the most within 30 seconds of swishing it in your mouth. That's how powerful ASEA is. And that's why this is one of those principal products that your nervous system needs. It's what drives the function of every single cell. And when you can make a healthy cell, you're going to make a healthy body. If you don't focus things on the cell, you're just masking symptoms. You're not healing. You're just surviving. Okay. We talked about the glutathione levels. When your potential's low, you're not making glutathione. One serving of ASEA increases glutathione levels in your cells by 800%. Okay. You'll make more of them when you can use them. And when you have all this potential, your body's like, oh yeah, let's go. We got potential. Let's go. Give me more antioxidants. Let's neutralize these things. We have a lot of work to do. And so it really is awesome. It's like bringing extra molecules into your rechargeable batteries so they can return to like a brand new performance. So I'm 50 years old plus, and so my batteries are half charged at best before I had a SIA. I've been on this product for over 7 years. I've been double dosing it the entire time. I know the kind of stress I put on my body. And honestly, if I don't take it for 3 or 4 days, my old pains and aches and problems all start to come back. My nervous system got so used to having this that it's treating me like I was 20 years younger. And Jack can testify to that because, he's got his own story there. He shouldn't even be around at this point, and with all he's been through and the struggles. And this product is saving people's lives. It really is. And I'm sure we're probably not supposed to say that compliantly, but it's the fact. It's giving our bodies the ability to save itself. Okay. The product doesn't save you. Your body's saving you every minute of every day. It's doing everything it can to keep you as healthy as it possibly can, but it can only work with what you have given it. It needs resources, it needs the right food, it needs water, it needs sunlight, it needs sleep, it needs exercise. You have to look at your whole picture, and you have to focus on the terrain inside your body. What terrain am I making? Is it a healthy terrain that I can expect healthy things to come out of? Yes, I would like to say just take a seat and your whole life's better. It will be for sure. But we want you to take this to change the potential and then continue to learn about anything we can do to help your body thrive and to be the best version of you. And don't just take things because you're taking them. It gives you permission to treat your body bad. That's not the message. The message is when you start feeling better, you want to treat your body better. When you have more energy, it's like this sacred. It's like, I feel fantastic. I don't want this to end. So no, I'm not going to eat that. No, I'm not going to go into that environment that's going to cause all that stress on me. I'm going to, pick and choose the things that I'm consuming and that I'm exposing myself to, because it all plays a big role in our health and the health of our future self. Remember, that's where this whole thing started, is you have to take a moment and pause and think about whatever's going on with me right now is okay. It's exactly designed based on the lifestyle I've been living. And so if I don't like my current circumstances, I got to change some things up. Changing them up, the first thing to do, increase your potential first. Okay. Then everything else you try is easier, it's better, it's more well received. Fill up your batteries. Don't keep recharging the batteries that only last for 2 hours when you can fill them back up and they're going to last all day. Okay. And so that's the message from today. It's really about lung health is about keeping a high potential. We have a high potential. We're not letting things in past here. It stops right there. It's neutralized and dealt with. It's gone. We don't have good potential. It's getting in here, traveling into our blood and literally ending up everywhere we don't want it. And so the lungs are your first line of defense. And that's why it's important to have the highest potential we have. We talked about the charge on the cell, and a normal charge is between 70 and 100. And if you're chronically ill, yours is probably 50 to 70. If you have cancer, it's 15 to 20. Guess what? Have you ever heard of heart cancer? No, heart cancer doesn't exist. It's because those cells have the highest potential in your body. It's never going to let cancer happen there. Okay? Potential is high, nothing bad happens. Potential's weak and low, all the processes fall apart. And disease gets in and runs havoc on your cells and runs havoc on your body. We can consume this stuff and turn our potential from low all the way back up to high again and give ourselves a new playing field, a new lot on life. I can do things now that I hadn't been able to do 10 years ago. You can do things in 3 months that you hadn't done 10 years ago. In a year of being on this, you're going to find different things happen over the years that are going to be because of this, but you won't give it credit because you've been on this for so long. Every year, new things happen. I used to have to struggle with sleep all the time. And over the course of the last several years, I've become a sleep ninja. I sleep for like 6 hours and I get 4.5 hours of deep and REM sleep in 6 hours of sleep. And I take a big dose of this right before I fall asleep, but I don't have to do anything else. I used to have to try all these little gimmicks, patches and oils and supplements and this and the lights and the dark and I mean, I used to have to pay attention to every little thing to try to get some sleep. Now I'm just out and it's easy. And it's like my body, it's one of those things that 7 years of being on this, I finally crack some other codes every year that get me to be able to have more potential, stay focused longer, sleep better, have more energy during the day, and be able to share this amazing message with all of you. And so that's it for today. Your message is get your potential up, recharge your batteries, get them back to full potential, and then just watch how your body heals itself. It's amazing. You can't expect yourself to heal fast if you're on 10 or 15% of a battery. It's going to give you what you're getting, 10 or 15% of your potential. We can change that. And this is one of the only fundamental things that I know of that can actually restore that for you. No other company is competing in this model because nobody in the world's figured out how to do it. And believe me, they've tried. And they wish they had, because this is probably one of the most brilliant inventions since sliced bread.